Hello, welcome to Community Matters. This is your host, Becky Steinbrunner. I'm happy to be here with you for the next 2 hours. Thank you for joining us. We are going to have a very good show today. I have here in the studio with me a guest, Mr. Ed Mitchell, the lead investigator from Never Again Moss Landing. And we will invite you to call in a little later if you like. I'd first like to give many thanks to the Satellite Digital Media Studio, where our Santa Cruz Voice Studio is located. It is at 325 Soquel Avenue in Santa Cruz. That's between Ocean Street and the beautiful San Lorenzo River. It is a clean, quiet, and very safe location for you to consider coming and doing some remote office work or whatever you need to do. If you tend to work from home but need a place that is clean, quiet, and secure and away from your home to have meetings with people, this is the place. Let me tell you, Satellite Digital Workplace is here. And we share this spot with community television, another real gem in our community. We are going to, I think, launch right into our first hour program with Mr. Ed Mitchell. And I want to introduce Ed as the lead investigator for the Never Again Moss Landing group. He's a treasure, let me tell you. Ed, why don't you introduce yourself, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for the kind words. What I'd like to bring up first is, who am I and why can I offer any insights that will help Santa Cruz County planners and supervisors make better storage permitting decisions about outdoor battery energy storage systems proposed to be built in this county, along with insights to better protect citizens from environmental harm. That's what I'd like to do today. Because of my 15 years testing and deploying national missile defense technology while in the Army and at Lockheed Martin, because of that background, I volunteered to be Never Again Moss Landing's lead investigator of the Moss Landing fire. Never Again Moss Landing is a North Monterey County citizen stakeholder group that emerged immediately the day after Moss Landing battery storage fire began. And you don't have to be an investigator in this case. One of the main things I learned is you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a great mathematician or know all the laws of the state of California. If you just take the attitude of Smokey the Bear. Mm-hmm. If you take a fire-wise attitude about looking at battery storage and how do we keep it from harming the local environment or people, you look at it with those eyes and say, well, is this a wise way or is this adding risk to how we store batteries around my neighborhood? Anyway, our investigation spanned 5 months from 16 January through 16 June. What we produced was a 51-page document, including 18 evidence slides, and we sent that all off to PUC, who hasn't said anything to us, and DTSC, Department of Toxic Substances Containment. And the focus of the investigation was to determine how and why the Vistra Phase 1 ion battery indoor storage facility burned down and spread pollution across Monterey Bay Central Coast. So what I'm doing is part of what our first goal is for Never Again Moss Landing, is to identify needed corrective action so never again will a community be damaged by a massive indoor or outdoor fire as our community has suffered. So there are some things, lessons learned that we have that I'm bringing over, one of which is, hey, act like Smokey the Bear. It isn't that difficult. Second, to identify needed operator and regulator corrective actions so the energy industry can succeed and can safely operate near communities. And that's one of the things that here's an insight that I'd like to share. What is the battery storage facility positioning trend in California? So that's another way of saying it. How is it showing up in Santa Cruz County? And so one of the good things that's happening in regards to storage in your county over here, I'm from Monterey County, is that they're proposing an outdoor storage facility. That is a lot less risky than indoor storage. So that's a good thing. Still, it can bring environmental and safety risks to the public. So one of the industrial trend now is installing facilities close to urban residential areas, neighborhoods, or near urban forests or rangeland areas. Well, what that means is they're getting closer to you, so if there's an accident and a fire, will that fire spread to grassland and start burning and being blown into a forest area? Is that more likely with the developments that are coming towards that have been proposed? Are they getting very close to residential developments? Like I believe one of the proposed sites was going to be near Dominican Hospital, and another one was near a high school in Santa Cruz County. So given the nearness to people, that raises the risk if there's pollution that flows off of the fire site. So that's the planners and the Board of Supervisors and the community need to make decisions about that nearness. And okay, if they're near, what do we do in case there is a problem? So that brings up the probability of an uncontrolled fire of one or more outdoor storage containers. What's that probability?
Depends on who you ask, the developer or...
That's absolutely true. And let me start with that. Thank you for... I didn't pay her for that, but that was a great lead-in. Okay. People over just following what's going on with the energy development in this county or Monterey County or across the state may have heard or read that the statement from the proponents of storage that it's words like this: battery storage is a great green technology. Unfortunately, that statement is misleading. It's not truthful all the way and leaves out three critical words. So here's the truth statement. Battery storage is a great green technology when it works. Okay, it doesn't work all the time. And when it doesn't work, and those of you who saw on TV what happened over in Monterey County, you get a huge amount of pollution. You get dangerous fire, uncontrollable fire. It's not going to burn out. The standard for the federal EPA and the industry is if you get a thermal runaway, you let it burn. It's what I call the burn, baby, burn strategy for containing one of these events, except while it's burning, it's putting out a bunch of smoke and pollution that's flowing out. So given that this truth, that means you either as a county employee or an elected official or a citizen in your neighborhood, the truth means that you need to protect your community from economic and foreseeable dangers, because it can happen. Now, how often has it happened in the state of California? What's the recent history? Well, let me come at that answer by saying this. You might have heard or read a comment that I'm going to quote here. There is only 1 in a million chance of a lithium cell fire.
Oh, my
The industry's improved that. Well, what they mean by cell is like a small battery, like a AAA battery. Unfortunately, that statement lumps flashlights that use this lithium batteries, cell phones, car batteries. Now, when you take those and push them out of, and say, let's look at big battery storage facilities. We're talking about 300 megawatts or 100,000 batteries, and you can do that outdoor or indoor. When you take those away and you look at the historical data, which I searched on the internet and found different sources, and including data from the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, what you find in large outdoor and indoor storage facilities in California, during the last 3 years, you learn that there have been 7 outdoor fires and 1 indoor fire. No, the indoor fire burnt down the largest lithium battery storage facility in America. So that track record shows that BESS fires are common. It's not uncommon, and it sure in the heck isn't 1 in a million.
Yeah.
All right, you're getting 2 per year. And so that track record shows also that the Public Utility Commission, which is the regulator of energy generating and energy storage facilities, has failed its stated mission of deploying safe and reliable battery energy storage. That means, again, community planners and supervisors need to protect themselves, their families, and their community. This stuff can happen. So given that it can happen, it's reasonable that you prepare for the worst case scenario.
The worst case scenario, not a little 1 AAA battery fire, but the worst case.
Right. I never had children, but I kind of think of, I can see a mom and dad watching the daughter walk in with this one guy, and he's all tattooed up, and he looks like he's on drugs, and he's smoking, and he doesn't have a job, and doesn't have good manners. It's kind of that's the worst case. No, baby, don't do it. It can happen.
Yeah.
And you need a plan for, in regards to battery storage, of doing something about it to mitigate things. So the typical dangers and damage that a large, and large means like 100 canisters outdoor storage, or like it was in the indoor, they had 100,000 batteries put in one building.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the dangers is what's known as uncontrollable thermal runaway. It does happen, and the policy is to let things burn if you get into that worst case scenario. You can get a massive pollution plume cloud drifting off-site. All right, I'm going to be talking about off-site and on-site learning. The state and federal focus on-site. They talk about they can go off-site and take sampling of plume pollution that's flowing over residential or business areas. But in those last 3 years, and including the biggest fire burned down in America, they haven't gone off-site. I'll give you an example. Monterey Bay Air Resource District.
Yeah.
That's in this case around here, it's a 3-county state organization that's supposed to be monitoring air conditions. They didn't do any monitoring off-site at Moss Landing.
None at all.
And when we say off-site, that when people who've been affected say off-site, what they mean is, if you look for where the plume cloud blew, and did it land or did it deposit, what goes up comes down, did it deposit on some community area or farm or business? And so that's where the public and where the state does not have a history of finding out. And like they could have in Monterey when we had the fire, they could have, because it burnt for days.
Mm-hmm.
It burnt and the smoke was coming out. You could stand, I was just talking to Becky a few minutes ago about you could drive on Highway 101 driving north out of Salinas, and you could see this huge, massive, continuously burning plume of gray and dark black smoke blowing right over Prunedale.
Man.
And so did anyone go out there and measure? No. The only people that did any measurement out there was our Never Again Moss Landing group, where we did our own. We got kits for taking samples, and we got our volunteer people who wanted to find out if they were getting polluted on their land. And we had 124 25 kits that went out, but 124 came back, and did show, in fact, that there was pollutants falling in areas miles away from the site. If you just keep measuring what's at the site and then claim, oh, there's no danger in anybody else. Nope, absolutely. We don't have it here. In fact, one of the problems we're having with state agencies is the lack of communication in the last 6 months. So what is the pollution that's laying where the fire site was on Moss Landing? There's a black scar residue, and we've asked the DTSC, and I specifically asked the representative from federal EPA, before the cleanup starts, the public wants to know what is the true pollution condition what in that black residue. We've seen the agreement from the PUC, with the EPA and Vistra, the owner and operator of the place that burned down. We looked through their agreement, and the findings does not tell the public what is the current pollution condition on the ground at the burn site.
And it doesn't describe what they have to be testing as they remove it?
There's another section, another paragraph, 48, which takes air sampling, addresses air sampling, and it says you're supposed to sample for asbestos and heavy metals. Okay. That doesn't mean that that's the complete inventory of pollution that is on the ground.
No.
We believe that, and this is the type of problems you can run into after fires. I'm talking about things, you get the fire, you get the smoke, and then you get the residue. And when you're permitting to an organization, you put stipulations in there for certain actions to be done, like should there be a thermal runaway fire, uncontrollable fire, that the owner-operator has to provide the samples of the ground residue of the fire site within 30 days or something like that. Those type of things aren't required by the PUC, who's the regulator, and has been failing. That is, the 7 outdoor fires and the 1 indoor fire. That's not a victory history.
No.
Again, the idea is that you look at permitting and try to protect yourself from the worst case scenario. At least you address that. For example, what is going to happen when wind blows out at Pinto Lake, which is the most active BES coming forward, as I understand.
And this is for the project in Santa Cruz County that is in permitting process at 90 Minto Road in Watsonville.
Right. And I believe I've been told by a group called STOP that there was a risk assessment test that was done by Greenleaf or whoever the company is.
New Leaf Energy.
New Leaf. And it was of a single battery burning up. Well, if that's a battery cell, that's like a AAA battery size. But if it's a module, then you have a whole bunch of cells in there.
Yeah.
We had 4+ plus million cells
Oh my goodness.
in the indoor facility. And even if the chance of a failure was 1 in a million, there's at least 4 chances of something going wrong. Anyway, looking for how you can protect the community and work with the industry. Now, the regulator may not like what you're asking. That doesn't mean that you have to just bow and say, oh, anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you should be doing. Be like Smokey the Bear. Look at what they're proposing and see, is that reasonable and safe? And in our particular case, they put 50,000 modules on one floor. That's like putting 50,000 cans of 5-gallon gas cans in one room and not separating them with the fire, known as fire stop walls or something. And that layout, as we reported in our findings, was prone to burning down the whole facility.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
And that is what
I
happened.
mean, Smokey the Bear would walk in there and going, don't you guys, aren't you worried about fire? I mean, that literally is like, what happens? How do you contain? The containment system was not adequate in that mode. Once one of the cells modules went uncontrollable, the suppression system failed, the containment system failed at our location.
Yeah.
So if you're doing indoor, that was not a good design. That's why I say just your planners and Board of Supervisors need to use Smokey the Bear common sense. And that means standing up and saying, well, technically, I'm not a great battery guy. No, but you can use your common sense.
Common sense.
All right? And if, again, okay, worst case happens, what are the normal wind conditions in the local area by Pinto Lake? Half of the day, the wind's probably blowing from the ocean inland, and then in the evening, afternoon, it's blowing out. So during part of that time, during the day, the nearby community area, especially if you're building it over at the Dominican hospital area or over the high school, you go, well, if that polluted air went and hit the high school or over at the hospital, then we've got to evacuate people right away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
I do not buy the line that just close your doors and windows makes you safe. I just don't buy that.
most people, from a common sense standpoint, let's take the indoor facility that had asbestos in the building and had other items, though some of it was cleaned up. When you're seeing gray and black smoke come out, you go, well, that's something that's probably not good.
Yeah.
One of the things that hasn't happened in the last 3 years is the federal or the state people going downwind to where smoke was blowing onto or right over the community, like on the 18th of January in Prunedale, when I was driving north on San Miguel Canyon Road, crossing Highway 101, I could see this cloud about a mile away up San Miguel Canyon Road that was on the ground.
Oh.
And then I suddenly breathed in some gas, which turned to be hydrogen cyanide. And when you suck in a gas that's not, there's no air, suddenly you go, whoa, I didn't get any air and I got something in me. Am I able to get rid of it and then breathe air? Which luckily I was, and I pulled the car over and threw a mask on. We've also talked, Never Again Moss Landing spoke with the senior toxicologist from DTSC, the highest toxicologist in California. Very nice. They did come and visit with us. I respect them for doing that. And I brought up the issue that what we're concerned about is these vaporized heavy metals and dioxins in the smoke that blows over the community. And nowhere could we find where the state of California can tell you what's in that cloud. Well, that condition applies right now to the plant being proposed to come into Santa Cruz County.
Yes.
So,
Or the one that 3CE, Central Coast Community Energy, is financially supporting to put in at Moss Landing. 750 gigawatt lithium battery storage. New.
don't ruin my day.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. We're looking downstream, but for the public, in order to protect themselves,
Yeah.
need to consider that there may be, and we ran these samples. We set up a symptoms page for Never Again Moss Landing symptoms page, and had over 1,000 people report symptoms, and then the county followed up later, and they came up with using much of our data and other data. 1,200 and some people after the fire that were showing symptoms like Ed, gagging.
Yeah.
No, I don't take drugs. No, I don't drink. I got a big mouth, but, I'm usually really reasonable. So I wasn't hallucinating. And people, there was a fire, and then people had the symptoms.
And some people were hospitalized.
Yes, some were. And so the industry people may stand up and say, well, they've never found anything poisonous after one of these fires. Well, if you don't look for it, you don't find it.
Isn't that so?
And I go back to Monterey Bay Air Resources District. They're let me open up. I know where it's at. Here it is. I had to remember. Here's the mission of this state agency. I'm going to read it to pieces of what its mission is. I quote, protect public and environmental health. Inventory air toxic emissions. Assess the risk to public health from exposure to these emissions. Notify the public of any known significant health risks associated with toxic emissions. And then make a health risk assessment. Okay, those pieces are what they're supposed to do. So here we are, January 16th, 17th, 18th, burning and smoke keeps going, and no one in Embard can figure out, well, maybe we ought to get in a car and drive up to Prunedale and see what the heck's going on up there.
Isn't that amazing? It's shocking.
It demonstrates, I believe, an agency, and we saw this in other agencies that came forward, that they weren't mentally prepared for the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
That's why I keep saying, talk over the worst case scenario. Now, PUC, Tanya Rivera, who started Never Again Moss Landing, and I, on the 13th of March, went in front of the Public Utilities Commission because they were approving an updating to PUC General Order for Operations and Maintenance, number 167. And that was triggered by a number of things. Senator Laird, State Senator Laird, had urged that there be requirements from the PUC to interact where the operator and the fire department must talk over fire situations. But it's a dirty, filthy word for the PUC to say thermal runaway. Mm-hmm. We encourage them to put into the ordinance, the safety code, that the operator of the facility has to talk to the fire department about the worst case scenario of uncontrolled thermal runaway. Because the way the wording of the PUC GO 167 now is, they can go talk to the fire department and they can comply with what the words say, go talk to them about fire incidences, and just not talk about the worst case. Mm-hmm. Protect thyself, friends, in Santa Cruz County. You can stipulate that requirement during the permitting cycle. So we're going to talk about this.
How receptive was the PUC when you and Tanya went and talked with them testifying?
Well, we were testifying not about an agenda item. And it's much like a Board of Supervisors meeting. We had 2 minutes to say, hey, we're a stakeholder group. We were forced into this. We don't want to be here, but we're forced into it. There was this disaster, and we're looking at what you're doing, and we encourage you to put the phrase thermal runaway in your document. And they followed what normally does, the rules. They don't talk to you or question you, so they blink at you, and they went on and they didn't agendize, which they could have.
Yes, they
that
can.
They would have had an agenda at the next agenda. That they would take up the issue of adding, nope.
Thermal runaway is a dirty word.
Yes, it is. Yeah. There are a number of things that you can do to mitigate. This whole history that I'm giving you says, well, let's go to fire safety mitigation, and as if Smokey the Bear was sitting there with you and your kids and looking at what's going on. And here's a few things I would recommend that the Planning Department Board of Supervisors take up. 1, require the BESS operator to list all the implemented safety features of the design. You can look at a design and say, okay, here's our design. We're going to have this for. We're going to have 50,000 batteries that are all stretched out in one room. And therefore, if we start to have a thermal runaway situation, of course, we'll be able to stop it. That didn't happen for us.
No, it didn't.
So you look at the design and you start doing the Smokey the Bear questioning, whether the operator likes it or not. 2, require a fire department or county engineer to inspect the storage installation drawings, the blueprints, before and after installation of storage containers to verify safety features are complied with. So you know what the features are supposed to be, and then you go check and see that they happen. 3, require a BESS operator to discuss and develop with the planning department, local fire department, and MBARD office how to handle the worst case thermal runaway scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we going to show up to? Well, no, you don't get just to do on-site. Hey, MBARD, you don't just do on-site. Get in the vehicle, take your mobile sensor and drive down. And, oh, by the way, maybe we need sensors that can actually determine if heavy metals are in the air, not just hydrogen fluoride. 4, require a county emergency response team to coordinate with the fire department, with MBARD, to ensure that the state agency, they go mobile and do remote air sampling during the worst case scenario, where the plume flows over nearby communities. You don't stand there and go, oh, we only do it at the site because, well, that's the only place we need to be. Baloney. Talk to your public.
And so you're talking about the plume, and how does one plan for where that plume might be?
Well, most of us live in a coastal area here. It's pretty common that in the morning to noon, the air flows into the inland area, and when the air heats up in the afternoon and night, then it flows back the other way. So one way would be to look at the typical weather conditions, wind conditions at Pinto Lake area. And if someone tells you, well, our test where we burnt a cell up or a battery up, that the smoke and everything from it would stay on site, it's like...
which is what New Leaf Energy is saying. The smoke would stay in the footprint of the project.
Yeah, and I think Smokey Bear would reach over and slap him in the face.
Rightfully so.
Don't tell me, oh, that's wonderful. Now let's talk about not a small incident.
Right.
Let's talk about the worst case.
Worst case.
Okay, in the worst case, if we can mitigate for that, then the lesser cases are you're doing a much safer design for the public. And then you say, well, 50% of the day, the wind's blowing from east to west towards the more populated areas. Maybe we can have this thing, we can have an incident when the fairground It's full of people.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I was told, Ed, that when the Monterey County Planning Commission approved the Vistra facility that burned, Vistra provided the air patterns for the Salinas airport. They didn't even use coastal on site. So how do we ensure that the information they give our planners is accurate?
you have to double check.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know that. I can't say that Vistra used those conditions. I know that the airport site was where the airflow information was that they had on their books. Okay, and so it was clear that, well, this is stupid. Again, smoke is beer. Rip up throw that on the paper and go, no, we want the air conditions at this site.
Yeah.
And tell me how you got that information,
Mm-hmm.
and that it is of where the storage area is. And so that's why when you go on TV and look up either KSBW or KION January 16th, Moss Landing Fire, and you look at what's going on. I was able to stand up. We were uphill about 4 miles away, and we could see the formation of the plume because that night it wasn't as windy as normal, and the plume, you could see the huge 150-foot high flames.
Yeah.
And the plume was forming, and it got thicker, and it started coming east towards where we were, and it wasn't. I left where I was at and moved back down to my place, and luckily it stayed to the north of my friend's house and where we were at. It stayed along Dolan Road, Castleville Boulevard. That's where the main cloud plume passed by. And so it was like a no-brainer that, well, the plume went over residential areas. Go
Sample
over
there.
Go sample there. It isn't just what's going on. So the sampling needs to be done at site because you have first responders and you have employees. Yes, that has to be done.
Yeah.
Including what residue is there. But then, in a disaster, and there's been 7 outdoor fires in 3 years.
Right.
17 days of fire and smoke. Otay Mesa, California, San Diego County. Oh, that couldn't happen here. Well, yes, it can happen here. So let's prep for it.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. Require a facility fire suppression system. Require a facility fire and suppression system before and after installation of batteries, or if suppression software is updated, test it.
Yeah.
Test the fire suppression system before and after installation of batteries. And there is some information, it wasn't in our investigation, that there wasn't proper testing of a software change, but that's to be confirmed later on. Require the BESS operator to supply an on-site aerial drone linked into their facility control center and into their remote control center to provide first responders aerial visibility of on-site and off-site incident conditions. Why do I recommend that? Well, if you go over to Moss Landing, it's kind of like a desert. It's there on a bunch of dirt and then water. Over here in Santa Cruz County, there's more. Like I said, they're moving in closer to urban areas.
Yeah.
And they are the best operators. And there's more grass or trees over in this area that you're talking about. So aerial, and look, you could have had an earthquake or something. And,
Right.
And you want the first responders to be protected and know what the safe areas are to be able to move on to the burn site or around the burn site or to evacuate people. And aerial drone visibility is a simple technology. It's not that expensive and should be provided by the operator.
Yeah.
And the training on using that in an incident and handing it off to the first responders, that is part of the mitigation process to avoid the worst case scenario. have a permitting specification that it's in his permitting document that the BESS operator must monthly report the number of days it violated the 10%, 90% discharge charge levels. So keep this. If you want to make money and more money with your stored batteries, there's a zone that the state has said is safe to be able to charge and discharge. And I'm using one that I've heard of 10%. You can't go below 10%, and you can't go above 90%. That is to protect the battery. And every time you charge and discharge, you're exercising that battery, and over time you wear it down. It's sort of like a wheel that runs around, grinding flour. It'll wear out over time. So there's this exercising of the battery, and if you go too low, you start getting heat spots in the battery, and if you go too high, it also has damaging impacts. They're not required now to tell anybody what's going on. And if they start violating that standard, how would you know about it? Well, Never Again Moss Landing is trying and encouraging the industry and the state to do what's known as TRIM, and that is a technique of transparent, real-time, independent monitoring of what's going on in every one of the BESS plants around the state. And so you can have somebody who can look in there and see that, wait a minute, they're starting to go, they're violating.
They're abusing their system.
Right. Maximizing the money per square foot, yes, but in the process of that, it is misusing, it's roughly using the batteries.
And increasing the chance of thermal runaway.
That is correct. Okay, now that hasn't been implemented, so we came up with this, that monthly they had to report the number of days it violated 10% or 90% discharge and charge levels. Excess violations will lead to degrading and assessing the health of every cell. So there's a penalty. There could be other penalties, but it's protecting yourself, and the operator's going to say, well, we're not required to do that by the state. And you just say bluntly to them, you want the permit build? This is one of the stipulations, because we're trying to motivate and mitigate someone getting too greedy.
And that's the thing that I think people really need to hear, that local ordinances can be more restrictive than those that are in place from, let's say, the state PUC.
I'd like to say additive.
Additive, yes.
Look at they're doing the detailed look at what's going on, and then they're trying to work with the industry so they get permitted, but also protect the local community.
Yeah. I like that word, additive, better.
It's diplomatic, and sometimes I'm not diplomatic. And now there's the laws in place where the California Energy Commission the operator can bypass the county and say, oh, they're being too harsh and mean to us and slow, and they can go to the CEC, who then has, I quote, exclusive authority for permitting the operations. I believe that could be challenged in court, of taking away zoning rights from counties. We ran, when there was fracking being proposed to put pollutants at the headwaters of the Salad Bowl of America that is down by San Ardo. We wound up going to court. We ran an initiative and won, where the people said, no, that's a bad place to do fracking. We'll do it any place else in California, but not there. It's the wet Smokey the Bear looked up and said, that's stupid. And the court agreed that the Superior Court agreed that the county had the right to zone where certain oil operations could occur. And I
Excellent.
believe that's pertinent also to here, where basically the CEC and the state passed the law and said, oh, no, you don't have, in Eddie's words, you don't have the right to control zoning of where certain things occur in your county for BESS operations. But that, we'll see how that turns out downstream.
And it isn't only where it occurs, but how it occurs.
True. Back with the fracking, the state said you couldn't control the technology they applied. Okay. But here we're just requiring that you report to us how you're using the technology, that we prepare for worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that and work with us, or when we start coordinating this, we go, this is too dangerous. You say, we're not going to permit. Or the county can go, well, we're going to do overriding considerations. Again, the public can decide what they're going to do in those cases. Here's the last thing that I recommend. When we were recently at the Commission for Environment, which is a commission
in Santa Cruz County.
Santa Cruz County has this, and they're supposed to advise the Board of Supervisors on environmental impacts, sort of like I've been talking about here.
Yeah.
There, in that meeting, there was a presentation by a former fire chief. His name's Nicholas, and he's now a private consultant because he was involved when one of the earliest Southern California BESS operations came in, and he was having a hard time figuring out how to assess the fire conditions and get a feel for where the dangers were and where they weren't.
Yeah.
He's been working with industry, trying to come up with the things that the fire department should look for. And because they can disagree with the permit going in place for fire safety issues. Anyway, I would urge the fire department here, if a BESS is approved, and the county to hire Chief Nicholas as a consultant to help them look at what is being proposed and recommend from his larger experience base any weaknesses in fire safety that he sees, but to follow the plan that he's been laying out to help fire departments and the industry work together to get a safe, reliable operating system. Now, if the Board of Supervisors can't grasp Smokey the Bear analogy, I urge them to, please. But I'm just someone trying to do, as Never Again Moss Landing said, these are some of the lessons learned we've ran against. Good luck.
Wow. Thank you. It comes to common sense, a lot of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And what I have been disappointed in seeing is how our planning department and elected officials really don't want to listen to common sense. And how can the public best get their ear? And do we take Smokey the Bear into the supervisor chambers with us? We might get thrown out.
I don't know. I think that would make it on TV, wouldn't it? Good idea, Becky. We ran an initiative. I don't know if you guys have the time to run the initiative.
Yeah.
For the fracking.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then we went to court. Here, the permitting process, and I commend the Board of Supervisors for delaying approval.
Yeah.
As I've said to a number of people, and I think others came up with the same idea, and have urged the Board of Supervisors to understand you might just want to wait until you find out what happened over at Moss Landing. Now,
Yeah.
by the way, Never Again Moss Landing is way out in front of all the state and federal agencies trying to help people understand some insights into what happened.
Yeah.
as I've done today. There's been no preliminary data from the EPA, from the PUC. It's frustrating, and so you all may need to decide. I commend the Board of Supervisors for waiting to find out if there's some lessons learned that might help them.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Downstream overriding considerations may be used. You know, okay, we've looked at this, we've looked at the worst case scenario, if they ever have. If they hadn't, I think the public should protest and submit a protest to the planning department that you fail to adequately look at conditions that are reasonable, that could reasonably happen. There's a lack of contingency and safety protection, but the team of folks over here have to get together and see what their action would be.
When you go talk with, and you and your group, Never Again Moss Landing, and I urge everybody listening, take a look at that great website, neveragainmosslanding.org. When your group has gone to the EPA and Monterey Bay area, regional air quality, and they tell you they didn't sample, what excuse do they have for not doing that important work?
They haven't answered those questions.
They haven't answered.
Yeah. Now, the PUC is coming forward. In our investigation, we included 20 recommended questions that should be, that the PUC should make determinations on.
Yeah.
Like, what state or PUC expert came down and inspected the Moss Landing layout before implementation by looking at the drawings and stuff, and then later signed off. This is a wonderful design. It's beautiful. I, as a regulator, can't see anything wrong with it. Proceed as you're doing. And that turned out to be the biggest BESS fire in America.
Yeah.
I don't think what we came to a conclusion was that too much for the indoor, not for the outdoor. For the indoor, the state and the PUC was following a policy of do what you want, self-policing. You pick the design. You're the best guys, gals, to know how to do this. So we're not experts. So we'll leave it up to you. And our report says that it was prone to burning down, and it was dull.
And I see that laissez-faire attitude even in Central Coast Community Energy's Operations Board, which is meeting next Wednesday. They are set to approve 2 large battery energy storage systems, not in our area, but they just blanket saying there's no problem, there's no risk, there's no danger, and it's lithium.
We, in 2019, when our planning department came forward,
I just looked at the clock. We've got 30 seconds, Ed. So sorry.
Good luck. That's all I can say.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Ed Mitchell, for joining us here on Community Matters with your good work on Never Again Moss Landing. You are welcome to stay into the second hour if you want to. You've come a long way to join us here, and I really want to thank you for all your good work and everyone there.
Well, you're an excellent voice for the community. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was excellent. Thank you.
We'll see if anybody heard it. We hope they heard it, and they hope they make comments.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You just laid it out. Here's what you need to do. And that's going to help us. That's going to help a lot of people. And hopefully it will help you folks in Monterey County too.
Yes.
Because 3CE is moving ahead.
Yeah, that's. We got enough on our plate right now, just trying to handle the old one.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to tell our guys, I think sooner or later we're going to have to sue.
I think that's what it's going to come down to for us too. We talked a little bit about a possible initiative. And that may be something we can do too. As you know, it's a tremendous amount of effort to get the required number of signatures.
We were lucky. We had Center for Biological Diversity, and they were willing to do a lot of the fighting. So.
And how did you get their ear? I've called them before.
We they saw what we were doing, and they popped up, and we said thank you, and please come to our meetings.
Yeah.
It worked out. We built a working relationship.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
We'll stay in touch.
We will. If I get ran over by a truck, tell them that I was worried that Vistra was hunting for me.
You kind of get that feeling. You ought to be looking over your shoulder a little bit, huh? Do you?
Yes, I have.
Big money.
I'm the only name on the investigation report. But one of their major tactics is just to ignore people. So thanks for the outlet. Hope we help.
Indeed you do.
We'll focus on our stuff. Good job.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
a
you
good
so
resource.
much. Thank you.
Yes.
Take good care of yourself.
Ready to connect. Click Connect to show now. You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
And welcome back to Community Matters. I'm honored to be your host. My name is Becky Steinbrunner, and I want to thank again my guest from the first hour, Mr. Ed Mitchell, the lead investigator for the Never Again Moss Landing group. I really appreciate that he took the time to drive all the way here because I have so much trouble with technology, and he wanted to make sure that you, the listeners, were able to hear his recommendations to move forward with a safe battery energy storage system plan as these projects are being implemented in our communities. As we were saying, there is a project at 90 Minto Road in Watsonville already in the permitting process. This would be over 300 metal cargo containers filled with lithium-ion batteries. And what Ed Mitchell implored is that we demand that there is planning for the worst case scenario, not just one battery burning, which is what the industry, the developers tend to do their risk assessments on, but rather a worst case scenario, like what we saw at Moss Landing, unfortunately, in January of this year. And I want to just give a nod to all those who are still suffering out there from the impacts of that horrible fire, and not getting any support or much support from the state agencies who are there supposedly to support the people. So as you've just heard, it's the people, the community, that matters, and has to do that good work and bring it to and lay it on the table for those decision makers. So I hope you will take to heart what Mr. Mitchell recommended that first hour as Santa Cruz County and other counties throughout the state are presented with these battery energy storage systems. I have been advocating people who are customers of Central Coast Community Energy to opt out of service from them, because 3CE, Central Coast Community Energy, refuses to listen to the people, listen to our concerns about lithium battery storage, and refuses to slow down their pace to reach their marketing strategy goals of 100% renewable by 2030. 3CE gave so you can opt out, and that's the only way we're going to get their attention. Lawsuits and wallets. So you can do that if you are a 3CE customer, and probably you are. They have 94% of the electric utility service customers' accounts in Santa Cruz County, because in 2017, when 3CE started up, you were automatically made one of their customers unless you actively opted out. You can do it at any time, and it's important to let 3CE know why you are opting out, that you are protesting 3CE's deaf ear to the public, our concerns about lithium battery energy storage systems, especially the large grid scale projects like what Ed Mitchell was describing here at 90 Minto Road. 300 metal cargo containers filled with lithium batteries, and we're being told it's all fine. So opt out, get their attention, and they're moving forward regardless of people going to their meetings and demanding that they divest themselves of battery energy storage projects that use lithium. The operations board for 3CE is in fact meeting next Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. You can go to their meetings, and I urge you to do so. In Santa Cruz County, they have a place in-person place in the basement of the 701 Ocean Street County Government Building, and in Watsonville, there's a Watsonville City contingent that will be there at the city offices at 275 Main Street. If you're in Monterey County, you can go to the 3CE headquarters, or you can get online. But the important thing is to have your voice heard. They need to hear from you because they are planning to approve 2 more lithium-ion BESS battery energy storage system facilities. Not in this county, they're in Solano County. But this should not be in anybody's community. The lithium is too dangerous, too risky, and we should not be using it. So, Never Again Moss Landing is a great website, and I also want to recommend that you take a look at Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County, another good website and another good grassroots group informing the people, because our local electeds are refusing to hold town hall meetings on this topic. So you are free to call in if you like, and we can talk more about that, or we can talk more about some of the other topics that I've brought to discuss with you this afternoon. The phone number to call is 831-265-5050, 831-265-5050. You know, speaking of fires, the Felton Fire Protection Department district is undergoing a lot of scrutiny these days. I spoke with you here a little bit about that last Friday. I was hoping to have here as a guest a representative from Felton Fire, but I reached out to them and they felt that it was premature because the local agency formation commission, LAFCO, has just issued them a threat. I'll be honest about what it is. It's a threat. That if they do not take action to do something to fix their financial problems, their response problems, their building maintenance problems, LAFCO will step in and take over. Well, you know, LAFCO cannot do that, but they can sound pretty tough. So they've issued this October the 6th deadline for the Felton Fire District Board of Directors to make a decision. And the Chief Isaac Blum, who is volunteering his time. Amazingly, I've been researching the Felton Fire quite a bit this last week, and Felton Fire has become problematic, has been having some problems since their former fire chief, Bobby Gray, left. And they have since had a hard time keeping a chief. They've just had a lot of issues. But I think based on what I heard this morning I attended the Felton Fire District Board meeting in Felton. Their meetings are usually Monday evenings. But they were holding a special meeting today because of this document, this October 6th threat deadline of LAFCO's. So they discussed it. And Chief Blum said that he felt the LAFCO report was really, he did not disagree with many pieces of it, such as perhaps in the past the response times were not good. Perhaps in the past they had dropped calls, not responded, because of the problems that they've been experiencing. But he felt that things are really taking a turn for the best. He said, you know, volunteer fire departments ebb and flow. And we're experiencing here at Felton an upturn. They have more volunteers. He is volunteering his time as a chief. He has a part-time fire captain's job over at Moffett Field, NASA. And then for 3 days a week, and then the other days he's spending full-time here serving Felton. Chief Isaac Blum lost his house in the CZU fire, and he really wants to try to help the community come back together and really address fire issues. He has been doing a lot of work, and there were some amazing things that I learned. And let me first say that he has a much better sense of what can happen now at Felton Fire. They have more volunteers now, and he's taking an active role in leading them, directing them, and they're handling calls very well. I met a couple of the volunteers, and they talked with me about a call they had gone on yesterday. It was at a place in the San Lorenzo River called the Garden of Eden. Maybe you know it, but it is a very famous swimming hole with a rock cliff, and people jump off of it all the time, and sometimes bad things happen. Well, yesterday something bad happened, and so it was Felton Fire who went in and closed off access to the area for security, and took what's called a Stokes basket. It's like a plastic cradle, and they climbed down the cliff and got the person out and pulled them up to safety, hauled them up, and worked with clearing the helicopter landing zone so the person could be life flighted to San Jose. And Felton Fire did that. They had, of course, always support from state parks and CAL FIRE because it's within the state, what's called the state responsibility area. But it was primarily, according to this young man, it was handled primarily by the Felton volunteer firefighters. And I said, you know, there has been quite a bit of press about what's going on here at Felton Fire. What, if anything, would you want people to know? And they both said that we are working very hard. We are working very hard because this is our community, and we care, and we're working very hard. So I'm hoping to have on my program maybe next Friday, more likely the Friday after that, someone from Felton Fire. It could be Chief Bloom, or it could be the chairman, Mr. Norm Crandall, and maybe both of them. And it would be really great to get one of the volunteers here too if they feel they can leave their station. But the issue is, does an all-volunteer station really work when your call volume has gone up from 600 calls a year to 900 calls a year? And you have some very complicated ones, such as the one yesterday that happened when someone jumped off the Garden of Eden wall and got some pretty nasty complications. So they're well trained. I was a volunteer firefighter myself a number of years ago and went through the training. These volunteers are very well trained. They get the same level of training as the paid firefighters do. And many people seeking employment in the fire service will, in fact, go to a volunteer company and get the training and get the experience. And then they are hired off into CAL FIRE or some fire agency over the hill. But the point is, volunteers are well trained and they are capable. So I was very encouraged to hear this morning Chief Bloom's assessment. He took exception with some issues in LAFCO. Now the LAFCO report says, all right, you're going to decide by October 6th whether you're going to stay as Felton Fire, and if you make that decision, how are you going to bring up your budget. And here is the most amazing piece of information, I guess, that I learned this morning at the Felton Fire District Board is they have not increased their taxes in over 30 years. They have not increased their fire protection assessments in over 30 years. So being a member of Santa Cruz County Fire and paying into CSA County Service Area 48, which funds Santa Cruz County Fire Department, which is all of the part of the county outside of these local fire districts like Felton, Boulder Creek, Central. Everybody outside of all of that is county fire. And there are two, and depending on where you live and what kind of property you have, property use, you may be paying thousands of dollars into county fire. So to hear that Felton Fire has not increased their taxes in over 30 years was a little amazing, and I think that they realize now that they really must do that if they are going to stay an independent Felton Fire Protection District. If you're looking to learn more, there's an event coming up, Felton Fire Revival, Firewise Community Rally and Pizza Night. This will be at the Felton Community Hall on Saturday, August 16th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and they will provide free pizza. Join your neighbors for an inspiring evening of real talk and the upcoming vital choices facing our community. Felton Fire Revival. Again, that's August 16th. That's a Saturday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Felton Community Hall in Felton, right next door to the Felton Fire Station. So put that on your calendar and support fire response in general, and see what they're thinking. The board this morning formed 3 ad hoc committees to review different aspects of this proposal threat. I'm going to call it a threat from LAFCO, and they're looking at all of these things and hope by let's see, I think their next meeting is in 2 weeks, and they'll come back and present their findings to the board and make a decision as to where to go from there. LAFCO has presented 12 options, and the Felton board formed one of the ad hoc committees to really evaluate those options given to them by LAFCO and really see what's the most, what would make the most sense to research and go further with. Combining with Santa Cruz City Fire, combining with Santa Cruz County Fire, combining with Zayante Fire, combining with Ben Lomond Fire, Boulder Creek Fire, all of these different agencies. So what's going to make the most sense? And they're going to be reaching out to the boards and leaders of those other districts to find out what they're thinking. Now, when there are consolidations, LAFCO really cannot force them, and both sides have to be willing. So it will be interesting. Keep it on your radar. And go, if you're interested, join the Felton Fire Revival Night. Again, that's Saturday, August 16th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Felton Community Hall. Let's see. Last week I had here in the studio a couple of guests that were talking with us about the problems that they are experiencing with the Regional Transportation Commission, RTC. Another threat to move their mobile homes that the RTC is saying encroach upon the rail corridor, which the RTC owns, or the RTC will move them and charge these people, and it's thousands of dollars. And so that was Roxanne and David that were here, and Tim called in. He's a resident there too. And we had a really good discussion. If you want to hear that, and I urge you to listen in, it is recorded. Nearly all of the past programs of Community Matters are recorded and posted on the SantaCruzVoice.com website. If you scroll down under current shows, you'll find a list of all the programs, and just click on Community Matters and you'll see all of the recordings that are there. And that was last week with Roxanne and David and Tim talking about the Castle Mobile Estates and Blue and Gold mobile home parks in the RTC. In our interview with Roxanne and David last week, they talked about why other areas that seemingly encroach as well are not getting this harsh treatment that they feel they are receiving from the RTC. And they mentioned a place called Capitola Beach Villas, Capitola Beach Villas. It's on 41st Avenue. So they piqued my curiosity, and I went to go look at that spot over the weekend. And yes, indeed, they are very close, probably 6 feet away from the tracks proper. And that has to be an encroachment. And on the other side is the same level of encroachment or distance from the rail by commercial buildings. It's the 41st Avenue Spa is right there. So I looked up who owns this land, because sometimes that will give you an answer. And it's interesting, in the Capitola Beach Villas, the units that are closest to the tracks are deemed affordable units. In the Capitola Beach Villas, these people own their condominium. And the owners of the condominiums right next to the railroad tracks, and I'm telling you, there's no setback. There is zero setback from the property line. They, with the exception of one, they are all affordable units. So by definition, these are people who are lower income and have qualified to receive affordable housing. This is in the city of Capitola. So we'll have to look into that a little bit more. I think I will do a Public Records Act request with the RTC to find out what action, if any, they have taken toward the Capitola Beach Villas and encroachment. Or maybe it's not encroaching, but it's even more constricted there than it is in the area between the Castle Mobile Estates and Blue and Gold Star Mobile Home Park. So we'll keep you posted. Did any of you listen to or attend the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission meeting yesterday? I was able to. It was in Scotts Valley, and I knew that living in Aptos, I was not going to make it there at 9 o'clock. So I participated by telephone, just listening in the first part, and then the project about the rail, passenger rail, was going to be presented later. So I did one chore and headed up to Scotts Valley. Of course I hit traffic. It's a given on Highway 1, and did not arrive in time. And also there was no place to park. I had to park quite a distance away and walk to the Scotts Valley City Council chambers. And by the time I got there, they were taking public comment. They had already taken public comment for in the room, and they were taking online public comment. But what I heard said was that the Regional Transportation Commission is proposing, in order to pay for the passenger rail construction and station building and all of that, they're proposing a 1.5% to 2.5% sales tax. And some of the people brought up, well, you can't do that because, for example, in Watsonville, they are already at their maximum 10% that they can have as a sales tax. So we'll have to see how that goes. In the end, what happened was that the commissioners asked to delay the project coming back. They pointed out, this is just a draft. We don't have a final report, and we want to see a final report with better information. So they I think they decided to wait until December for that report to come back. However, asked that the report be issued to the public and the commission at least by the middle of November, so that people have time to read it. They complained that the information had been released publicly only 72 hours before the meeting, and for something so meaty, you really need time to digest it and read it carefully and thoughtfully and ask questions. So hopefully we'll see that coming back in November, and then the commission, the Regional Transportation Commission, will look at it at their December time and make some decisions then. Apparently there's some deadline as to how soon they have to take action, because it's tied to some grant money. Always tied to some grant money. But the Regional Transportation Commission received a check, a big cardboard check, from the State Transportation Department yesterday for $128.7 million. And that's for the area between State Park Drive and Freedom Boulevard. It's known as Segment 12 of the rail corridor. It will be the most complicated section to address because they're doing the trail and the rail at the same time and the highway widening at the same time. So they kind of have to, I guess, because the train bridges go over the highway in two places, and there's another crossing of the rail coming into Aptos Village. So the RTC is planning to build a complete separate trail on the mountain side of the tracks and build a 300-foot long bridge over Aptos Creek Road that will be for the pedestrian trail, and another elevated viaduct pathway near the other subway at the other end of the village that will cross over Highway 1 independently of the rail bridge, the rail trestle. So lots coming up, and more highway widening. There was some talk about moving the tracks in Watsonville to accommodate better use of the Watsonville train station, which is on Walker Street. And there was just a lot of interesting talk. You can listen to it if you go to Government on Demand. That's through community television. Government on Demand, and click on the most recent video of the Regional Transportation Commission. There are other meetings there too you can look at. You can look at the County Board of Supervisors. You can look at Soquel Creek Water District, different city council meetings. It's a wonderful resource, so you can see and hear what was said if you couldn't be there at 9 o'clock on a work day. You're listening to Community Matters. I'm your host, Becky Steinbrunner, and I invite you to call in. The number to call is 831-265-5050. 831-265-5050. Let's see, what else do we have here? I can talk with you about the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors meeting that occurred on Tuesday. Folks, I have not been so mad in so long that it was kind of like sticking my finger in a 220 volt plug-in, and it kind of, I just don't do well getting angry. I just do not do well getting angry, but I could not help but become angry when, in hearing the County Board of Supervisors had a public hearing to delist the Redman-HIrahara house from the Santa Cruz County Historic Inventory. It's also on the National Registry of Historic Places. And it was all based on the request of the developer, property owner, the Tutt family, Elite Development, to take it off so they can demolish it. And they want to build something else there. There have been plans floated around for a hotel, another hotel, and a shopping strip mall there. And we've talked about the Redman-HIrahara house here on Community Matters. I had a wonderful guest, Miss Correll Reeder, who's a wonderful historic preservationist, and we both said this has to be saved because of the story, because of the history, because of the architecture. There was just so much. And at Tuesday's Board of Supervisor meeting, there were people that came who had only learned by reading the newspaper that the board was planning to delist this treasure. It doesn't look like much now, but it is still structurally, most likely structurally, good, because it was so well built. It was designed by William H. Weeks, a local, very famous architect, and they used high quality wood and craftsmanship. So when it was evaluated 10 years ago, it was found to be in good shape. But the developer paid the county building inspector to go out and walk around and kick a few dirt clods and say, oh, it's not habitable. And that was the determination that the County Historic Resource Commissioners were willing to accept as evidence that it should be delisted, as evidence that they should do the bidding for the property owner developer. And in the audience on Tuesday, there were people who came and said, well, if you can just give us a couple weeks. This one woman said, I am very well connected with the California State University women, and I'm sure that we can raise some money to help preserve and restore this building. There were two people that weighed in from Monterey County Historic Preservation who recommended the board get a second assessment, and the board ignored them. What I did, I talked about how the reason it is in such a state of disrepair is because the board has for years refused to approve a demolition by neglect ordinance that would have required the property owner to at least tarp the roof, and if they wouldn't, then the county would and bill them. Our county Board of Supervisors refused to take that action. And I also held up and submitted as evidence a very well-written doctoral thesis by Dr. Jacob Stone from UCSC, just completed last year, and he very carefully laid out the history of the structure of the farm and had dug some trenches relying on Cabrillo College archaeologist instructor Rob Edwards' work to catalog what was there. Not only the barn, where the Hirahara family, when they were able to come back after being imprisoned in World War II and had a home because their neighbors took care of it for them and paid the taxes, they converted the barn to an apartment for 2 other families. And so Rob Edwards and his students had cataloged things they found in that barn and around the house, and dug 3 exploratory trenches around the house to look for artifacts, and it was a rich find. It was a very rich find in terms of not only the Hirahara time, but earlier. None of that was ever discussed at the Historic Resources Commission meetings, and I attended them. So I held that up and asked them to please, look at this and consider it and delay their decision, but they were not going to do that. All of them except Supervisor Justin Cummings. And I really want to applaud his courage to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to approve this. I am not comfortable setting this precedent to allow our county to do the will and bidding of developers who simply want to bulldoze our history to make it something else. And I really want to thank Justin Cummings for that. The others, including 2nd District, where the property is, 2nd District County Supervisor Kim DeSerpa was, using, in my opinion, empty words of how sorry she was, and if it would have happened sooner, could have happened sooner, it would have. And the empty words of Supervisor Koenig, oh, it's just too bad. Gee, it's too bad. And the empty words of a smiling Watsonville Supervisor Felipe Hernandez is, oh, this is just, we just have to move on. Well, you bet he wants to move on. He is a former Watsonville City Councilman, and this is his territory. And Watsonville City, as I've discussed here before, has a project on the table called the Gateway Project, and they're going to incorporate all of the land from the city of Watsonville out and a little bit beyond the Redman-HIrahara area, calling it the Gateway Project, with visitor accommodations, hotels, shopping, and local recreation. So that's what it's about, folks. It's about the money for the Watsonville City, and they bought off, in my opinion, the Historic Resources Commissioners, who are a very powerful commission. Those commissioners are never told this, but in state law, it is the Historic Resources Commission that can do a thumbs up or a thumbs down on a project if there is anything of historic significance. And they chose to just do a thumbs up and even offered to pay the $600 for the building inspector to go out and walk around and say, yep, it's not habitable. Well, there you have it. And I want to clear the record. I read in the Santa Cruz Sentinel that it said I was nearly ejected from the room for yelling out, and that is just not true. I mean, I was mad. I was very mad when when the supervisors would not give any extra time, even 2 weeks, to give this woman who said she was pretty sure she could come up with the money to save it. And she and all of us had waited an hour and a half extra because there was there were a couple of items pulled from the consent agenda, and they talked about those a long time. And it was the first time she'd ever been to a Board of Supervisor meeting, and she waited over 2 hours to be able to talk with them and try to reason with them. And so, yes, I was yelling after the 2 minutes that the public is given to address the board, and when it was looking like they were just meaninglessly saying, oh, it's too bad. And there was no reason they could not have delayed it. There was no reason why they could have delayed it. But they didn't. And so I was saying, just give her more time. Give her more time. And the Sentinel reported that I was disrupting the public hearing and nearly had to be ejected. And folks, that's not true. It is not true. All right. Well, you never know what they're going to put in the paper. You can't always believe what you read. You're listening to Community Matters. Please call in. Maybe you were there at the Board of Supervisor meeting. Maybe you were there at the recent fire board meeting. Anything, call in. Or maybe you just have something on your mind that you would like to discuss with Community Matters, with your community, because community matters. Here's the number, 831-265-5050. Now, also on the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors agenda last Tuesday, they had a presentation from Mr. Rob Shaw, who is the CEO of Central Coast Community Energy, 3CE. And so he gave a presentation to the supervisors about what 3CE is doing, their wonderful membership, their wonderful projects, their wonderful greenhouse gas emission reducing things. And it was the first time, let me say that again, it was the first time that 3CE has admitted they have supported lithium-ion battery energy storage projects. He was not specific, but we know that 3CE has signed a power purchase agreement with a brand new 750 gigawatt lithium-ion BESS battery energy storage plant in Moss Landing. 750 gigawatt lithium-ion battery storage in Moss Landing. 3CE is doing this. And it was the first time that anyone from 3CE has admitted. And so, because many of the public members who were there, and we had waited over an hour to be able to, it was the first item on the agenda, but because Supervisor Koenig had pulled 2 consent agenda items that were discussed first at length, the whole thing got set back. So many of us were there, and we were asking, well, why do you have to have such an aggressive marketing strategy of 2030 to be in 100% renewable energy? And he said, well, actually, we're going to achieve that goal by 2028, 2 years earlier. And again, we said, well, but you're not you're not allowing any alternative non-lithium battery storage. No, and some of the supervisors kind of followed up on that. Well, what is available? Are there alternatives? And he basically said, no, lithium's the only thing available, which is just not true. It is not true. And I urge you to do a little research on this. There's some good information on the Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County website, and look at what China is doing in terms of battery manufacturing and use. China is switching over. China is the largest battery manufacturer in the world, and they're switching over 50% of their production to sodium batteries, sodium-ion batteries, because the lithium-ion batteries keep catching fire. And it is not only in the containerized grid energy storage projects that Ed Mitchell and I were talking about in our first hour, but also scooters. They're having a lot of scooters that are catching fire with these lithium batteries. So they're changing over to sodium, and China has released a sodium-powered, sodium-based battery electric car. So why the no-holds-bar attitude from 3CE in our community here? Why? Well, 3CE has not been willing to answer that. The only answer Mr. Shaw had at the Board of Supervisors meeting was just a blanket statement. Lithium is really all we have. And nobody questioned him from the board. Well, I urge you to do your own research. And there will be some community meetings coming up. The Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County has already held 3 excellent meetings, and they're planning one for August, the end of August. So keep your ear to the ground for those, and I'll be sure to update you here on Community Matters. The word on the status of the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors approval of the county's ordinance to allow these things in our county is that currently it has been delayed from April until September 9th, and we are told by staff that it likely will be delayed again because they are waiting for information about what caused the Moss Landing Vistra fire. Now that is prudent, and I applaud them, because there are certainly lessons to be learned from that horrible event. You're listening to Community Matters. My name is Becky Steinbrunner, and I urge you to call in 831-265-5050. So let's see, what else can we be talking about here? It's a lovely time to get out and walk around in the along the rivers, in our parks, along the beach. We're really lucky to be in such a beautiful place. So I hope that you will take time to go out just for even a short walk and get out in nature. It helps you calm down. It helps you ground and helps just appreciate all of the beauty that we have around us. All right. Without you folks, I am scrambling here for other things, so do call in 831-265-5050. Here's one more thing that we can talk with you about. Relating to what happened at the County Board of Supervisors, the consent agenda had an item relating to, it's item 32, to accept and file the status report on blockchain-based digital wallet application development and take related actions. So what does that mean? Well, let me fill you in. And this is very relevant, in my opinion, because in the Santa Cruz Sentinel a couple of days ago, it was stated that Sheriff Clark, Santa Cruz County Sheriff Clark, refused to apply for almost over $250,000 in funding, grant funding, that from the federal agencies that he could have gotten and that the county has received for covering expenses related to incarceration of undocumented immigrants. And first of all, they have to have been incarcerated for at least 4 days and with a felony or 2 misdemeanors. And the county has been getting that money, over $250,000. But Sheriff Clark has decided he's not going to apply for that money anymore, because he doesn't know what the federal agents do with the information that the county supplies about these people. So he wants to protect their privacy, and that's notable. But what about those of us who are not in jail? What about those of us who are U.S. citizens here? Well, this blockchain digital wallet is something to really be concerned about, in my opinion, and here's why. It has been going on. It was the love child, if you will, of former Supervisor Zach Friend, who was very active in policing and technology. He was part of a group called Yardarm and part of a group called PredPol, Predictive Policing, where they gathered information about people and then used it to follow them around and try to predict where trouble might show up based on that. And he convinced the board to accept an offer by a company called HUMBL, HUMBL, to, for free, gather all the information on people in Santa Cruz County that comes through the county government office, and to create a digital wallet. What does that mean? It means that their work is open sourced, essentially, to others. And who knows what our information is being used for, or where it is being sent. We'll try to have a little more information about that, but write your supervisors about that if you are concerned, if you have questions. People have asked the supervisors many times, what is HUMBL doing with our information? Why are they doing this for free? And what are they getting out of it? And we never get an answer. Well, there you have it. All right, we are at the end of our second hour, and I want to thank you for listening in on Community Matters. I'm your host, Becky Steinbrunner. I've been honored to be here with you for the past 2 hours, and look forward to next Friday when we'll have some guests, hopefully from the fire agencies. I've also invited the outgoing leader of Cabrillo College, Dr. Wetstein, to visit us. Take care, and thank you for listening.